A very warm welcome to everybody who has joined us today. We are delighted that you are with us. This is the Writing Jam, Learning with AI, to support this project that we are leading from the University of Leeds, and you will hear more about it. This jam is actually an idea that was shared by our PVC student education professor Jeff Grabble when he learned about the Open Book project, and he said, why don't you organize a jam to get people together to write together? So here we are. Unfortunately, Jeff couldn't join us today, but he is with us in spirit. Also, Margaret Korosek, Dr. Margaret Korosek, who is sponsoring this project as well. So we have a number of hosts, and you see them here with us. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. First of all, my name is Christina Ranzi. I'm a professor in creative and open education in the School of Education at the University of Leeds. I'll hand over to Olivia. Olivia, please.
Hi, my name's Olivia. I'm a master's student studying terrorism and insurgency in the School of Politics and International Studies, and I'm one of the student editors on this project.
Thank you so much. Handing over to Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm a lecturer at the School of Electronic and Electrical Engineering at the University of Leeds.
Wonderful. And Sam?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sam. I'm a teaching fellow and a doctoral student here at the University of Leeds.
Thank you so much. And we are delighted to also have our writing coaches here with us. Kirsten, please.
Hi, my name's Kirsty McDermott. I'm an Open Education Resources Advisor here at the University of Leeds at the library. Nice to see everybody.
Much. Thank you. Richard, if he's with us. He may not, but Richard is a colleague from the Organizational Development Professional Learning at the university. And Erin?
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Conlon. I teach academic literacies at the School of Education at the University of Leeds.
Wonderful. We are grateful for all of you to be here, and also our guest, which we are going to introduce shortly. So,
lovely. So this is just to give everybody a bit of an overview of our time together. So we've got a bit of an introduction to Gen AI from some of our guests, and then we've got at 10:05 an introduction to the project and the project team, and then there's going to be a little bit of individual writing time, followed by at 10:45 a short break. After that, we'll have some time to share and discuss that in breakout rooms where there'll be some of our hosts around to help, and then finishing that off with some time to review some of our own writing from those individual writing times, which again is supported by some of our hosts and writing coaches.
Great, thank you so much. And as you see, we are already behind schedule. But we hope you will keep smiling and stay with us. There is a break, so we hope to catch up with that, but we are very much looking forward to working with you. And here are our special guests today. We are delighted to have Professor Eric Atwell with us, who is a professor in artificial intelligence in the School of Computing, with expertise and a focus, isn't it, Eric, in AI for language. And we are very much looking forward to his contribution. There he is. We have Erin. I'm just introducing everybody briefly here so that we can then progress to their presentation. Erin Conlon is a colleague from the School of Education, where she's a lecturer in academic literacy and does some exciting work with students directly on how they're using AI. So very much looking forward to a contribution. We have Alexandra Poradovska with us, who is one of my students actually on the MA in digital education in the School of Education, and we share her experience of using generative AI. And Madeleine Fawcett from the School of Design, another student and intern at the moment at Adobe, who will share her insights from the perspective of industry and how important AI is becoming and how it is viewed. And what this actually means. So every speaker has about 5 minutes for a short presentation or provocation, or share a key point with us. After the 4 minutes, what we have said is that there will appear a heart on the screen, or multiple hearts, which means that you have one more tiny minute to conclude. After all our guests will have completed the presentation, there will be some time for some questions. So please capture these here in the chat, and we will pick them up and convey them to our wonderful guests. And we are ready for you, Eric. Thank you. We can't hear you at the moment. Please switch on the microphone. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, right. Sorry about that. My technical expertise isn't that great when it comes to using computers. I'm a professor of artificial intelligence for language, but I'm actually more of a linguist. So I've got 5 minutes. Artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, but it's mainly, up until fairly recently, been what we call classifiers. A classifier is given some examples of something and what class it belongs to, then given something new, it can predict what class it was from what it's learned from the previous ones, which is fairly useful for all sorts of things, like, for example, grading exams. You can give it a piece of text and it'll tell you what class literally what is it, first class or second class. But it needed a lot of examples, and it needed to have lots of examples which were manually graded or classified. Generative AI now is completely different, and it generates text. So GPT or ChatGPT is generative pre-trained transformer. It's trained on everything in Wikipedia, everything in the web, and the language model, it's complicated, but essentially chops up everything with training into little pieces, and then when you type something up, it chops that up into little pieces as well, word pieces, and it extracts the meanings of all of these word pieces, and it assumes that the meaning of a sentence is a combination of the meanings of word pieces. But meanings are represented as vectors of numbers, not the traditional sense of meanings. And it means that when you type something in, it chops it up, tries to find matching pieces from its huge memory, and generates something from that big memory which somehow matches the meaning of what you typed in. So what's really important is what you type in. It actually doesn't need lots of examples. You don't need to give it lots of examples of essays that have already been marked. You can simply give it your essay and say, what is it? What should the mark be? However, it's not that straightforward. So you can say, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this essay? So, for example, university very recently put up a plan for using AI in teaching and education on their intranet, and I copied and pasted this to Copilot and asked me to give it its strengths and weaknesses, and it did. But to get more than just a very generic answer, you have to say exactly what you want. So this is what's called prompt engineering or prompt design. You need to define exactly what you want. Don't just say what are the strengths and weaknesses, but given that this is a strategy for the University of Leeds, a major research-led university, is this an appropriate strategy? And can you just tell me ways of improving it, ways that mark it out as worthwhile, but things that are missing and need to be improved? It's a bit more detail. And that's essentially what prompt engineering is. So the challenge, if you want to use AI, isn't really to understand how it works, except remembering that it's only generating bits and pieces of what it's seen before, which somehow match the meaning of what you typed in. And that's why what you type in is very important. And you can give it lots of detail. You have to essentially instead of programming in Python or some fancy programming language, you're programming in English or whatever language you happen to be using. It also works for Arabic, for Chinese, and for other languages. And generative AI tools will keep getting better. So if you find it's not really doing what you want, typically, if lots of people discover something,
I seem to have lost Eric. I don't know if you can still hear him. No? Eric, I suspect there's an issue with your connection. No, we can't, says Ben either. We are going to... Oh, there he is, Eric.
So I've dropped out. I've pretty much finished anyway, so that'll do.
Okay, a final word maybe?
A final word, yeah. The reason we want to use, or we need to have some good examples of using, of how you used AI, the prompts that you used. So when you write your 750 words, please be very specific, be as detailed as you can about what exactly you did to get these marvelous results you're going to get out of it.
Thank you so much, Eric, and we will continue with Erin. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So as I said before, I'm a lecturer in academic literacies, which means I'm working with how people find knowledge, engage with the knowledge, make their own new knowledge, and then communicate that knowledge. And the previous ways of doing that have been fundamentally transformed with the advent of Gen AI. So I was starting to work with artificial intelligence literacies with my students, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about what they said when we were having these sessions. So these are from the master students, campus-based in the School of Education, and what their experiences have been with Gen AI so far. So I don't think I'm going to say anything revolutionary by telling you that most of those students have used Gen AI for their studies, and many of them are using it with some regularity. However, not many of them consider themselves very competent users of Gen AI. So like Eric was saying, they don't know how to use it effectively. And one of the important things that came out of this was that a lot of the feelings students have about Gen AI are not necessarily positive. There's a lot of confusion, particularly around how to use it appropriately. There's a lot of distrust, and this is coming from the sense that from the university's point of view, it's very much talked about from the aspect of academic integrity. And there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with that of how am I using this? Am I using it appropriately, ethically? And in particularly, is this helping my learning or is it not? Because those feelings students have are very similar to the feelings staff are having: confusion, distrust, and anxiety about how Gen AI is impacting learning. Which is why what this project is so great in kind of opening up and making that more transparent about what's going on there. Because so much of this is happening at an individual level behind closed doors. And so what students are wanting is exactly what this project is aiming to achieve, which is more nuanced discussions that are focusing on the benefits as well as maybe the drawbacks of learning with Gen AI, and not making it only a punitive, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And students are wanting more examples of good and bad practices of learning with Gen AI so they can better understand how to use this new technology in the best ways. And they're also wanting more guidance for how to use Gen AI in academic and professional contexts, because it is kind of a brave new world and they're trying to figure this out in real time. And the more guidance they have, the more those negative feelings of confusion, distrust, and anxiety will reduce. So that's just a brief explanation of what other people have been feeling, and maybe we all have similar feelings. So that's all I really have to say.
Thank you so much, Erin, and we are looking forward to the questions that we are going to ask you and our colleagues. And we move to Alexandra, please.
Hello, everyone. So I decided to use these two images for my presentation to show my experience of using AI as a postgraduate student of the MA in Digital Education. I used these two images that were created by Canva, and starting with the image on the left, I wanted to show a lady who is happy and satisfied with the outputs that had been generated by the tool. So I wanted to give you two specific examples of when I felt like that, when I felt like by using AI, it helped me with my learning. So in one example was for a preparation for one of my seminars. I had to read a paper, and I found that there were two specific paragraphs from that paper that were difficult to understand because the sentences were too long. And I'm not a native English speaker. And when I have these long sentences, I tend to go back and find out, okay, there are some subject references here, but what does it refer to? What is the noun it refers to in this case? So that was the case for one of the papers. And I just went back many times and I didn't really understand what the meaning was. So I used Microsoft Copilot and I just copied and pasted those specific sentences and I asked for help. And I found that it was really useful because Copilot went back with chunk of phrases and I could really see what those pronouns refer to in the specific paragraph. And it was easier for me then to understand what the main idea of the writer was in that specific paper. So I found that it was really useful for my understanding, and that allowed me to participate during the seminar for that specific session. So the other the other example on how I found it useful was when I had to prepare a plan for one of our assignments. I wasn't really sure on what techniques were there to plan a writing. And so I use, again, Copilot, and I ask, can you give me examples of techniques that I can use to plan my writing? So it came back with the mind maps and with the linear plan. So it gave me very useful examples. It showed me how to use them. And then in the end, I decided on which of the two techniques were more appropriate for my planning. So I would say that these two situations really helped me with my learning. And I found that in that case, Copilot was a very useful and efficient technology. But then again, the picture on the right-hand side shows my frustration sometimes on using these tools. So that example was, well, specifically to generate this image of the lady looking confused and frustrated when getting the outputs from an AI tool. And to generate this image, it took me many different attempts because every time I was asking Canva, oh, I would like the lady to be wearing casual clothes. I would like the lady to have dark hair and curly hair. And every time it was changing something, but then it was something that was already correct. It was changing it. So it was really frustrating. And there was a problem with the hands. So there was no keyboard before, but it was showing the lady typing on the table instead of the keyboard. So I was just getting frustrated. And I said, well, it would have been easier if I'd just taken the photo myself, looking confused at the screen, and that would have really shown what I wanted. So in that case, I found that it was unreliable and that I felt that I wasted my time. But I think now the image, so comparing these two images, the one on the right was generated about 2 months ago, and the one on the left was generated a week ago. And when I did the one on the left, I just got it on the first attempt. So it looked like Canva had made some improvements on generating images because I just got what I wanted. And the hands were showing correctly on the laptop, and there was no like funny things or things that I didn't want on the images. So my recommendation is, well, as a student, if you've never used AI tools to keep experimenting with them. Sometimes you will get good results. Sometimes it will be frustrating, but I think it's by experimenting you will get to learn more about them. And it is in the end us as users to make our own decisions whether what we are getting is really what we need. And yes, so that was really what I wanted to share with everyone.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And it follows really nicely from what Erin had said about the need for sharing good and bad examples or things that haven't worked, isn't it? And highlighting actually what you said there at the end, that decisions are with us if we are using it, how and why and when also. So thank you for that. And we will move to
Thank you.
Madeline. Thank you. Over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chrissy. So lovely to meet you all. Thank you for everyone that's joined today. So I'm Mads. I'm an art and design student from the University of Leeds, and I'm currently on my industrial placement at Adobe. And within my experience of working here, so I've been here about 10 months now, so I'm here until the end of July. I've had the really unique opportunity of working with end-level designers, creatives in the design industry, which has given me a great insight into how people are now using AI within the creative field, which I think will alter the way in which people are learning with AI. So from my experience, the use of AI is now changing the roles. Some people would argue that AI is potentially taking away from, say, a graphic designer's role. However, it's just altering and sort of serving as an assistant rather than taking people's jobs away, in my opinion. So for example, creativity could be amplified by using AI. So from the stats here, you can see that 66% of creatives say that AI helps them produce better work. This could be through quick actions, through background removal, which beforehand in Photoshop, that would take hours. Whereas when you're doing that on a level of large scale design work, that is now being minimized to a matter of seconds through prompts that you can input into your AI machine learning tool. Tasks like image generation and background suggestions are now AI assisted, freeing up more time for the bigger picture thinking and bigger tasks, which I think is helping people manage their time efficiently, allowing AI to set aside the boring, less creative work and letting designers do the real creative work themselves. And then lastly, these tools, like I mentioned just now, are particularly useful when producing high volume content. For example, in large corporations and content environments, speed and consistency is key. And AI, we can see from working with these companies, is completely speeding up the consistency and brand alignment, where AI is helping with these tasks. So basically, in summary, what I wanted to kind of put across is that AI it's already transforming how creatives work and how everyone works. It's a matter of leaning into AI and helping us change the way we are not only learning, but taking it into the industries that we work in. And I think that this applies to lots of different industries, not just design, but I thought this would offer a unique perspective from perhaps a degree that doesn't necessarily use many AI tools, but in fact, I think every kind of industry is completely changing because of AI. And I hope that is a useful bit of insight. Any questions, please do just feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madeline, for that last insight also in what's actually happening in industry at the moment and your personal observations from the sector and how generative AI is sort of handing over the boring stuff, as you said, potentially to the machine and freeing up time for the humans. I hope that also means more collaboration among humans, among ourselves. Okay, I thank you so much, all our speakers. I think what would be useful is to pick up some of the questions, and I think we all have questions as well to ask our four speakers. I'm going to stop the sharing so that you can see everybody better for a little while, and here we are. So please feel free to switch on your camera. Ben, I'm going to ask a question. If you can then maybe with Sam also pick up anything from the chat, we can ask our guests. One question I have maybe for all our guests. Eric talked about the need for being very specific in providing guidelines to generative AI, sort of instructions. We know humans are not good at writing instructions, but also following instructions. I used to be a translator, and it was even more difficult to actually translate instructions. Erin talked about the need for transparency among staff and students. In our case here, we had Alexandra emphasizing as a student that the need for us to make the decisions. So we are the decision makers. It's not just what AI gives us, so a more critical engagement with us. But also Madeleine realizes that roles may be changing. So all these dimensions, what do these mean for what we are doing in higher education, and specifically how we help our students? Is there something you would suggest that the institution of Leeds, another institution, the sector could perhaps do better or start doing, or what could we stop doing? Erin highlighted the challenge with looking at it from an academic integrity lens, for example, but I'll leave it there. Who would like to respond? Thank you. It's a big question. Any thoughts? Who would like to start? Justin. Okay.
Hi. Yeah, I was just wondering, because I'm not sort of up to date with the whole sort of AI stuff on the website, on the university website. And I was just wondering, like, is that kind of, does anybody like find that helpful or clear? You know, because I think a lot of the universities have that kind of traffic light system, and I don't know whether that helps or hinders, or I don't know. Like, I just wondered what people thought about that, because you know, I don't know whether we just need a bit more like good examples and more kind of, you know, I really like when Madeleine was sort of saying about leaning into AI and it not being, because I think sometimes when you talk about AI, it can focus on the negative, and, you know, or everybody gets a bit scared and it starts, you know, and it's just nice to highlight like the great stuff that's going on with AI and the real sort of way that it can save time and really contribute to everybody's learning. And I was just wondering, like, how do you grow a community of practice? I suppose this is why the book's so important as well, because we can build on that. But are we too, as an institution, maybe focused on the negative too much as opposed to the positive? And I'm not sure who this question's directed at in particular, but I'm just sort of trying to spark a discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsten. Should we ask Erin her thoughts on this, perhaps? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Christine, your question really resonated with the experience I had working with the students, and the guidance on the website. I mean, guidance is in its very nature not particularly easy to understand if it's just general up there on a website, and then you have to parse through what it means for you specifically in your specific assessment. So there's always going to be that gap between what the person is trying to explain in the guidance and what the audience needs at that exact moment. So yeah, a lot of confusion around, okay, it's a yellow traffic light. What does that literally mean for me in this assignment at this time? So that is something that is really, and that is why these conversations and examples are so important, to kind of take it from the page and into reality and practice. But there is the challenge at the same time of, I think that having a critical eye about an AI in education and learning is really important. And I listened to this amazing podcast from the New York Times the other day that was saying we've kind of done a decade-long experiment with screens with children, and they've grown up with an era of screens in education. And, you know, we went from everybody needs an iPad to now we're all scaling back to nobody should look at screens during these formative years. And it's important that with Gen AI, we maybe think about how to maybe make that experiment into learning a critical and cautious but optimistic approach. That's my take on it. And
Great, thank you so much. Thank you.
Ben, there was a question, I think, about language and translation. Maybe we can ask Eric.
Yes, there was I think there was a question from Ma about the translation problem. Just let me just read out. I'm now a teacher teaching translation from Chinese to English. So now with the advent and AI, when we input the sentences or passages into the AI, we get the translated version. Sometimes it is even better than most students. So do you think the teacher who teaches translation will be replaced in future? And if not, how will the teacher survive in generative AI era? So I think this not just apply to language, but I think to a lot of other areas as well. So if anybody could comment on that, please. Either from students' point of view or from educator points of view.
I think
Eric,
we can start with Eric, yes.
Yeah, and we don't have the answers. These tools are out there. There's loads of different tools, and at the moment it's like the Wild West. Nobody really knows. Ideally, the students would like to be taught how to use them well, but we as teachers don't know how to use them well. This is the whole point of this sort of exercise, to try to get together a corpus of examples. Not necessarily all of them will be good examples, but then hopefully when we've got a lot of examples, we can pick through them and find ones which fit our particular circumstances. So I think it's important, though, that we need to have details about how the students are using it, so that we can see this looks like a good idea that I could take up in my classes, or maybe this is not appropriate for my classes. So I hope this is what comes out of this exercise.
Thank you so much, Eric. And responding maybe to part of the question that was about will we stop having translators? I think the same questions came up many years ago when we talked about machine translation, and we still have translators, but the role, as Madeleine said, has changed for translators largely then, as it may be changing now or is changing now for designers, for example. So it's not that the roles will completely disappear. Some roles may almost completely disappear, but new ones will grow out of this, which will present exciting opportunities, I think, for the human mind and human creativity as well, and do that in combination with generative AI potentially as well. Okay.
Sorry, I meant to say I put a reference in the text to in the chat.
Great.
A paper we've just published on translating AI for translation teaching, but it's co-authored by the actual translation educators. So they're looking into how to use it better to help them in teaching, not to replace themselves, but to. I mean, in the past, as you say, machine translation came along, but we still needed lecturers to teach the students how to use the machine translation tools optimally. That's I mean, nowadays students come expecting to use these tools but need guidance on how to use them.
Yes. And still machine translation doesn't do wonders when we talk about literature, translating literature. I used to translate literary works, so it's very different from translating, a technical or legal text as well. So there are variations there. We have maybe one final question here from Joanne. Isn't it about the craft of learning and the craft of writing, and then using AI as an augmentation? Can we ask maybe Alexandra about that? What do you think? You are a student. How do you feel that? Because there are different ways of approaching it, and Eric talked about giving detailed prompts, for example, but it's also what we give the machine, isn't it, regarding the prompts and the information we feed in to see what we can then get out. What's your view on this, Alexandra?
Yes, well, as a student, I have done many different experiments. Sometimes, well, when I go back, because I started using it a few months ago, I think 8 months ago, I think that some of these systems, well, for example, Copilot, there has been like some improvement in the types of responses that I can get. So at the beginning, I remember doing an example of a translation exercise, and I noticed that it wouldn't translate some specific words, but it would just leave the English word. For example, the word of AI, it would keep using the word in English. And I thought, well, maybe there's a problem with it that it doesn't want to translate it. But whenever I saw the whole text translated, I thought, well, the translation is not bad, but I think that I could use it like a starting point for my final translation of the document. So I think that sometimes AI can give us very good ideas that can like trigger further ideas from us, and it can help us improve the output generated by the tool. So I think that the tools are really useful in some cases. If we don't specify what we really want, then it won't work as we want. But I think, as I said before, it's really important for us as the user to read what we are getting and think of it, and not giving it as oh yes, this is true, what the machine is telling me, that's the right answer. But you have to make your own judgment and look at it. Does it really make sense? Does this really mean that? So this is like to make you think of the types of answers that you are getting, so that you as a person can develop as well your other skills, like your critical thinking skills. Is it really this? I mean, is this true? I have to find out. I have to fact check this information. So that's another thing that, well, while using AI, you can develop different skills.
Thank you. Thank you. This is so important what you just highlighted there, that AI can actually help us sharpen our own, critical and creative thinking at the same time. And it is about questioning, isn't it? Learning is about asking questions, and the more questions we have, the more we understand that we don't know very much, and we know that there's a lot more to learn. So if we can increase that appetite for learning through that questioning, dear old Socrates, I'm going to bring him back in, talked about the use and the value of asking questions. So it's really important and fundamental, I think, to human existence, progress, and evolution. Great, thank you so much. I think Ben has one final question, and then we can move on. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is related to sustainability. We do teach sustainability, but from Areda, which is a very interesting question, how do we balance the use of AI and its ethical and sustainability concern? So anybody who would like to comment on that?
Who would like to give it a go? I think I read something recently that says stop thanking Gen AI because it costs so much in energy. Yeah. And we are very polite, with the machine. So is this something we shouldn't be doing, for example? Who would like to respond to that? Yes.
Sorry, I think it is a tricky one, that. I mean, obviously with the energy that it takes, but if you kind of look at the possibilities for AI, I mean, it could potentially save the planet, so it's kind of weighing that up. And if you think about, time saved, money saved, directed in the right way, it could really solve a lot of the global problems that we have today. But yeah, I mean, definitely the energy sustainability is a problem, and the more and more it grows and grows. I mean, yeah, I don't know the answers for that, but other than it could actually solve sort of the global crisis and help with the environment, but at the same time it's using so much resource as well. But yeah, this is a tricky tricky situation.
Thank you.
Oh,
Let's see
Eric.
what Eric says.
Yeah, Eric has. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
well,
Kirsten, for your thoughts.
I have a completely opposite perspective that computing carries on getting bigger and bigger all the time, and probably there will be in a few years' time we will be able to do this on much smaller scale. So a lot of research in AI in large systems is about how to come up with a small large language model as opposed to a large language model. So maybe in the we'll be talking to your mobile phone on your wrist rather than having to do it on the internet. But I mean, that seems to be a crazy reason to stifle the development of this new technology because it's using up resources, because that's the only way it's done at the moment. But it will be smaller. You might as well say in that case, just turn off electricity and stop using it altogether.
Great. Thank you so much. It's good to hear different viewpoints, and there's a lot of things to think about and consider when we are using generative AI. Some of it is beyond our control, but there are things that we can control and need to be mindful of. One of them is the sustainability aspect, but also the potential good on the other side, how it can benefit, in our case, students in their learning. Okay, Ben and Sam, is there anything else we will address, or can we move forward?
I think we can move forward now. Yeah. Thank you everyone for the questions.
Yes, thank you so much. Now I think it is time to hand over to Olivia, our student editor, one of our two student editors on the project. And it was lovely to hear everybody saying that we need more examples, good examples, and examples maybe that are not so good, just real examples, not masterpieces of how students are using currently AI, so that we can learn from these and come together as an academic community. Olivia, can I hand over to you to present the project briefly? Thank you so much.
Yeah, sounds great. So I'm going to be presenting our Learning with AI project. The aim is to gain insight into how students are using generative AI to support their learning, to support their studies, or occasionally also in everyday life, what they use it for just generally on a day-to-day basis. We are co-creating a crowdsourced open book on the Pressbook platform with contributions from students around the world, which showcase how they're currently using generative AI for their learning. It is co-edited by students, that's myself and the other student editor, Amani, and also supported by staff at the University of Leeds. Our aim is to publish a kind of first edition of this in September of 2025, but the idea is that it is a kind of a living book that continues to grow and be of value and has contributions continuously added to it as they come in. So that students and staff and generally people who work in higher education can learn from each other on how AI is used by students at university. Yes, I think, hang on, I will move it forward. Cool.
Yeah, on the next page.
Yeah. So this is just the team of people who are working on this. So there's myself and Amani on the who are the editors for this kind of first edition until September. And then, of course, all the really wonderful people who support the project. So Chrissy, Richard, Kirstine, and Damien and Tom, who all are just very helpful and very committed to this project, which is really amazing.
Yes, and we have ethical approval to run this as a research project as well. You see the details here. So any submissions respect the ethical commitment we are making. But in order to submit, anybody would need to read the information sheet carefully in advance, and then if they agree, provide their consent, and only then will we accept submissions.
Yes.
Olivia.
So we do have sort of some, I guess, incentives outside of just, wanting to share how students use AI. So we have a random prize draw of £150 that will be done, I believe, by the 31st of May. That's all the submissions up until then are if people choose to, how do I put this? If people choose to include themselves, are eligible for this prize draw. And then we're also looking for cover artwork to include within the book. So if anyone here is particularly creative or artistically inclined, that's also a really great thing to submit. And we also have a prize for the cover artwork that would be selected.
Mm-hmm. And all artwork that is submitted will be included in the book. It's just that one of them will become the cover, but every artwork will feature in the book.
Yes, which is a really great way to kind of get your art into the world and kind of showcase it as well, which is a really wonderful opportunity. We had our launch event on the 7th of March this year during Open Education Week, where some of us participated on the Open Education Week live panel, where we discussed the project and got the word out to quite a few people, which was really wonderful to be able to participate in and kind of see the interest coming through. And this is kind of what we're looking for. This is the submission form. So as you can see, we're looking for student contributions of up to 750 words in total, which answer the following questions. So in what context did you use generative AI? How did you use it? In what ways did you feel it helped you? And then what tools you used? And if you used any academic references to write your contribution, you can add them below. So there are options to submit anonymously if you wish. There are also options to include your name, what university you're from, what country you're from, what course you study, whether you're an undergraduate, postgraduate, so that we can get kind of the full amount of detail possible to really get the widest kind of array of data possible. So once this has all been filled in and you've submitted it, either myself or Amani will read through it and just check that everything fits and everything works and everything sounds good. And then we add it to the press book, which once it's published will be open for everyone to read, and everyone to read people's stories, which I think is really wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And as Olivia said, how did I confuse you with Amani? Thinking of Amani is not with us today. Like we said, if students want to remain anonymous, this is absolutely fine. We are actually not collecting information about specific institutions or a specific course. So the information the students will provide are more generic, and they don't have to disclose 100% where they are, where they study even. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and it's great to have you and Amani on the project and working together. Can you maybe tell us how it has felt so far to be involved in such a project?
It's been really great. The team is obviously all wonderful and very helpful and very keen to support myself and Amani, which is amazing. And then just reading all the submissions is really, really interesting, kind of seeing how different people use AI in different cases. And we've been adding submissions. I think we've had about 9 or 10 so far, and reading through them, we've got submissions from the UK, but also from abroad. We have people who are undergraduates, postgraduates, people who are doing science, but then also people who are doing humanities degrees. And so it's really, really interesting to see what tools people use for what and in what kind of context. And so it's been great to kind of, me, myself, learn from this as well.
Thank you so much, and it's good to hear that has been useful. Eric's asking us a question about the word limit. He says, can I write more than 250 words, including prompts? We would encourage that, Eric and everybody else, perhaps in an appendix, you know, in the box. I don't think the box is actually limited to 250 words. You would be able to write more in, I think, just indicating it maybe as an appendix, and that's something we can consider also going forward. That's a really good suggestion, especially since you highlighted, Eric, the importance of prompt engineering, or the instructions we give to the machine. Thank you so much.